looking ahead to today. I was like, man, that was badass. But you almost like the excitement from yesterday had me up all night because I was like, holy shit, like those sessions were awesome. I was getting texts and LinkedIn messages from people I don't pay that said great things. And they said it was awesome. Some of the highlights that I got, the PE session was awesome. That was a surprise.
I was hosting something at the same time, but I'm gonna have to watch it back.
You gotta watch it. I'm gonna quiz you too. You gotta fucking watch it. And it was awesome because it was really cool. All of us marketers, the in-house marketers, they want to know how the overlords think. What do they want to see out of us?
Do they like being called the overlords?
Cody laughed. I think it was good. The BI session was awesome. Those dudes are doing super advanced things.
I wish we had, I could have done 2 hours on that topic. We're gonna have to bring it back and do a podcast or something to get deeper in because it was really cool.
Yeah, Clay, Tom, Ibrahim, Andy, very, very smart and doing big things. And it's hard to wrangle data at scale. The executive session in the morning, that was a great way to kick things off. That was really cool to hear like how they're thinking about things going into 25.
What the priorities are, the technologies people are using. We heard awesome insights on the KPIs that people should be looking at to measure success. I mean, if you're a marketer listening and you're trying to figure out what to prioritize next year, it's like a grab bag of great options and you probably can't do them all. You need to pick.
You know what my favorite part was that HIPAA compliance was last on the list of shit people care about.
Put it behind us.
I was like, yes. I think it's partly because we've solved some of those issues, partly because some of the regulations that got slapped got pulled back. So that was good. And now we're focused. It's interesting. I think it was really indicative of the macroeconomic situation we're in. The number one focus through the poll was looking at ROI and how to justify our marketing investments because everybody's feeling something is a little rocky right now. So we got to be able to justify things. And our
session coming up right after this is about other ways to model
media modeling, right? Yeah. And so that'll look at, that helps with that, right? Because you're going to get to look at where to spend the next best dollar. Every marketer's wondering that. When do we have diminishing returns, all that fun stuff. Cardinal has something called RevRx. I'm sure we'll be talking about that. Today's going to be awesome. We're going to start by talking about paid social. I'm going to lean more into paid social. It's all social, but we're going to be talking a lot about paid social and how that helps with patient acquisition. That's going to be fun. Maria, Tracy, and Bonnie, you're super smart. Bonnie's awesome. And we're going to be talking about podcasts. That'll be fun. Guys, very important time today. We've got Everybody Wins trick-or-treating thing. Go into the virtual studios. Go talk to our sponsors. Justifying ROI is the number one concern marketers have going into 25. Each one of these sponsors does that. And Brevium reactivates them to help your LTV. So it's perfect. Go learn from these sponsors. Yes, they pay us. Yes, I'm paid to say that. But guys, if you want to justify ROI, like these vendor partners of ours, we can't do our job without them. We can't justify our existence, and neither can
Here's what I'll say. The ROI of your time is $1 per minute. Everybody who participates gets a $15 gift card. For 15 minutes of speed networking. So, and trick-or-treating. So go
and you can register to win the Rolls Royce of coffee machines.
I don't even know what brand it is, but
it's not.
We'll pick it afterwards.
It's not espresso. You know how our giveaways go. We just pick whoever we like the most.
Stop.
I'm just kidding, kind of. We've got awesome stuff later today as well. We've got an AMA on media. We've got a media debate. It's a lot of media stuff today. We're going to have a lot of our media team members in here actually physically debating. I think they've chosen sides on stuff, so that'll be fun. And these guys don't F around. They're pretty rude sometimes. So it could be really
them going at it to each other. They don't have to be nice. So I'm looking forward to it.
Is Ruchi sitting that one out?
Yeah.
All right. Ruchi's on paid social and she's brilliant. You guys, if you know Ruchi, you know, best media person in the world. So that'll be fun. You guys have to attend that. And then we culminate the day talking about patient journeys. That's going to be really fun. How do you reach the right patient at the right time with the right message, with the right value prop, with the right CTA? That's awesome. And they're brilliant. So that'll be really fun. And speed networking. I think that's the final thing. When you're sleepy AF, you've got to host a speed networking.
Well, actually the last thing, because a lot of our panels, you know, we write we get together ahead of these to prep and see what's inside everyone's minds and what they want to talk about. And so we build these scripts and then you know, there's just never enough time to get all the questions answered. So all the Q&As that were happening in the chats that we didn't get to yesterday and probably won't get to today, we're going to end our day with 45 minutes with some of our media experts coming back on the line. And we're going to rattle off all those questions and get you guys the answers to things that you didn't get answers to. And we're going to have a little fun, probably, I don't know, maybe make a Halloween appearance.
Oh yeah.
Stop by to check out our costumes.
We got some weird ass costumes. That's good. I forgot. Yes, Ashley did tell me to mention that and I forgot. Guys, throughout the day, put your questions in the chat. I do watch them pop up. Our hosts watch them pop up. And so that's a good way. We're doing Q&A. It's hard. But put them in the chat, and then because everybody else can answer them, all the attendees. By the way, I'll leave us with this. We have increased attendees by 107% over last year. We sold this MFR out.
We have no more seats. We had to kick people out.
I love agencies. You guys know I give tickets away to agencies because the rising tide lifts all ships. I want agencies to be better, us to be better, so that we connect more patients with care. So I give them tickets because they have the exponential factor of helping lots of clients. They're the ones, if we want to connect patients with care, they have the most impact. We had to kick some of them out last night to make space for more client side. I promised my agency amigos, we're going to get you all the recordings and all that networking and all that stuff too. Don't take my clients. But we had to make space. We sold it out. That's so cool. I don't know how you sell out a virtual thing. We didn't pay for the
You just
bigger
don't have,
license.
you didn't plan ahead well enough.
I couldn't afford the 5K for the bigger license.
Exclusivity feeling.
Yeah. No, we really did. We were just too cheap to get the bigger license. We'll do that next year. But anyways, it goes to show all of us are really invested. Scaling up is resonating. These sessions are useful. Healthcare marketers are really out to connect patients with care, and they're finding this is a good vehicle to do that. Let's get the show going.
Yeah, bring in our guests.
Yeah, let's do it. Opening the door. I took theater
You're
for
letting
years
them
in high school. I
not.
was a fucking thespian. You don't know that about me. Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. That's why I'm so dramatic with everything we talk about at Cardinal.
I think we're ready to get started.
Are they there?
They're going to join us. You got to announce them.
Then you got to talk to me, buddy. I don't know what's going on. This is going to be fun. Coming out of door number 1. Bonnie, Tracy, Maria. Are we here? Are we here?
Yes. Hi, good morning.
What's going on? How we doing? Everybody get their coffee? We good?
Lots of coffee.
All right. Awesome. 3 superstars, all have lots of experience in social and multi-location provider group marketing. I know each one of them personally. They're awesome. They're super sharp. This is a great way to kick today off.
Yeah.
I'm pumped.
Let's get them introduced. I want to hear about them.
Let's do it. Maria's like 10 feet away. I don't know why I didn't think about doing it right here at the studio. Maria, are you here or Birmingham today? Where are we at?
I'm in Birmingham today, so not that close.
All right. Yeah, it's like an hour. We can reach you. What's going on? Tell them a little bit about Maria, where you work, what you do.
I am the marketing director for demand generation at Southern Veterinary Partners. So my team handles all things related to new client acquisition and paid and performance media.
Yeah, it's a big group, and SVP 400 plus animal hospitals.
Correct. Yep.
House of brands, extremely complex to devise strategies that work holistically, and you have to care about each individual clinic. So it's not easy.
And we'll layer that into part of the discussion. How do you enact paid social?
You
got that many things going on. Yeah, that's good. And I will say my favorite thing about Maria, she runs 8-minute meetings. I love it. Tracy, tell them where you're at. What do you do? Who do you work with?
Hi, I'm Tracy Stemple. I'm VP of Digital Marketing, Content, and Growth at Schweiger Dermatology Group. We have over 120 locations and growing, very exciting role. I've been at Schweiger since May, and prior to that, had a lot of experience with digital marketing at one of the top orthopedic hospitals in the world.
Yeah, I love it. So high acuity and derm is really exciting lately because everybody wants to be in derm because you got general dermatology and then you got the cosmetic stuff. My wife.
Well, and Schweiger's got this growing complexity. I mean, you guys are branching out into allergy, into hair restoration, into so many other things. Your business is complex, not in that you have 400 brands, but that you have all these different service lines that have different patient journeys. And so, yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about how social plays a part in that.
Yeah. Teach us, Tracy. Bonnie in Little Rock, what's going on?
Here in Little Rock, Arkansas, I'm the market director of marketing and communication for CHI St. Vincent. We're a part of Common Spirit Health. We have 4 hospitals, over 75 clinics, and then 3 ambulatory care office sites as well. And I'm so excited to be here. And you spoke to my heart, Tracy. You said hair restoration. I feel like I need that. So good to be here.
Alex has a journey on.
I've been there, guys. $10,000 later, I'm broke, but the hair is restored. My kids were telling me yesterday, Daddy, your boo-boo doesn't look like trash anymore. I said, okay, great. Does the back of my head look like trash? So this is fun. But 10, 15 years ago when we started Cardinal, like social really wasn't a thing. And then 5 years in, everybody's like, what do we do with social? Do you post? You just want to see animals and friends from college and stuff like that. And now it's totally changed. Guys, I want to open this up to all of you guys. How do y'all define and measure success on social media? What do you guys look at as this thing is working, or what do we want to get out of it? I'll open it up. Bonnie, you want to start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're a large hospital care site facility, and so really what we look at is engagement. We want to make sure that the content we're producing is actually usable for our patients, and so we're really thoughtful about how we work the content into what people want to hear about. Because I'll be honest, hospitals aren't sexy, right? Nobody wants to be here. Nobody wants to go there, especially if you're talking about emergency departments. I mean, ooh, right? And so we really look at engagement and listen to our social audiences.
Yeah, I love it.
We talked yesterday about kind of the trust building and how trading, content and information from a clinical perspective without asking for anything in return is really important. And social is a great place to do that. So especially for a system like yours.
Absolutely.
And
100%.
Bonnie does a lot of educational stuff. That's
Yeah,
gonna be really fun to
it's really
dive
important.
into. Maria, how do you look at social? What do you think the qualifying metrics, and we can keep it in the SVP vein or talk about other agency experience, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we're primarily looking at bookings and appointments and things like that. So we're really using social as a down funnel stream right now. I think there's a universe where we get to leverage some of our veterinary doctors and get to leverage some of the cool content that's coming out of TikTok and other social channels to create more brand awareness. But we are managing basically 400 micro brands. So we're really looking to drive as many appointments as we possibly can.
And you're really using it as a capture program. Yeah,
Yes.
you expect
Yep.
to drive leads. I love it. Is it working?
It is working.
Okay, cool. It's good to know. I'd be concerned if it wasn't. Tracy, how do you look at social?
That is a great question. So I agree with Bonnie, definitely on the organic side of things. A lot of it is about engagement and also seeing if we're driving traffic to our site. I think it's building engagement with our existing followers. And in an ideal world, if it's a little bit viral, we could potentially get some new followers and build brand awareness. From a paid perspective, obviously it depends on the goals, and you could really look at social standalone. So are you driving traffic to your site if that's the intent? If you're actually trying to book appointments, and hopefully you have like a HIPAA compliant platform and can actually see if you're booking appointments, but if not, you could look at things directionally. And then also just when social is part of a full funnel approach, not only looking at it standalone, but looking at the impact that social could have on the performance of all of the channels in your ecosystem.
Yeah, I love it. As much as like MOPS was the theme of scaling up last year, I feel like full funnel advertising is this year. It's really cool to see people are understanding and like starting to utilize it to drive overall awareness and leads down funnel. Very cool, Tracy. Maria, like what is the right time? A lot of groups are wondering like, when do I start dabbling? Should I be making TikTok videos now? Like when do I start with this social shenanigans? What do you think? What's your advice on like, you've done this and now this is the right time to start getting into paid social?
I think when you mastered a lot of the standard performance channels like paid search, and maybe even dabbling a little bit in display and PMAX and all of that kind of stuff, it really is time to start looking at social channels, because at the end of the day, social is still a little bit higher up the funnel, right? You can drive leads and appointments and bookings and all of that down funnel, but it is an engagement and awareness play at the end of the day. So you're really looking to broaden at that point. So that was kind of our approach is, once we started to tap some of our markets and we needed to, basically get the word out about some of our hospitals, and honestly start competing against, some of these bigger brands that are coming in like Chewy or Pet Folk or, hospitals that really, really have that, social connection. That's when we started pushing up social as a priority for us.
Yeah, so you use it as like a defense mechanism in existing areas, or you're trying to test into new. How do you test it with so many house of brands and all that stuff? Like, how do you test it and then measure? When you look at your numbers, you're like, yeah, this is working, and we tried it on it. Like, what do you do to that?
Yeah, so we pilot across our portfolio. So we, take hospitals that have different demographics, different attributes and behaviors and things to that extent, and create a pilot test group so that we can see what would perform with one test group versus another. And then from there, we tie direct attribution back. So all of our online booking, phone calls, all of that can be tied directly back to any kind of Facebook ad. And that's really important for us to understand if the pilot is actually working or not. But again, I think hitting on, if you do have a house of brands, they're all different. So making sure that there is one of those different kind of brands in your pilots.
I like it. We do like it's creating cohorts of hospitals that have like behaviors both online and offline. I think the offline piece is really important. You think like, I'm just going to group them together based on how their paid search performs, but what about the circumstances on the ground? Are they rural, urban? What's the demographic like? What's their
Exactly.
historics, their brand? How deep is their brand penetrating? What's their competitive set? So yeah, it's a whole different world when you're doing it at the scale that Maria's doing it at.
Yeah. And I heard being able to track it. So called lead appointments scheduled like that. At the end of the day, you need to be able to see what touch points
Yeah,
matter.
if you have the right tech stack, you can do it.
Yeah, very sophisticated SVP. They measure EBITDA.
Yeah, I love it.
I hadn't even heard of that.
Tracy, you mentioned you're the first one today to bring up kind of full funnel, and similar question for you as Maria, like, when are you thinking about, okay, I want to have a full funnel program? When is the right time to deploy social? Do you have specific use cases? Are you thinking about it as an evergreen channel?
It's a great question. And I agree with Maria that it does depend where you are in your digital approach. And for us right now, our primary focus is on search and capturing all of the existing demand that's out there. But in my prior role, we did have a full funnel approach and leverage social to generate both awareness and consideration. And when I say social, I'm talking mainly about Facebook and Instagram, because we really need to be where our potential patients are. So we had a little bit of an older demographic, so something like TikTok wasn't necessarily relevant. But within that, we were focusing on the brand overall. We were focusing on different locations. We were focusing on different service lines, and had a bunch of different sub campaigns where we would create awareness, who we are, what we do, what we offer. And then we were able to see who interacted with the upper funnel content, and then get a little more specific in the consideration phase, and then start to talk about why choose us, what differentiates us. And we had a lot of different types of content at different stages, so that there's not wear out. And although we didn't focus on generating conversions, we did get some conversions through our social channels in the full funnel. But what we were able to notice was that having the upper funnel awareness made consideration strategies more effective, and actually even had directional impacts on other channels. So for example, our paid search campaigns were more efficient and effective when social was part of the mix.
Yeah, it's not all this, hey, I can tie the exact dollar to the click to the conversion. I mean, that's lovely when that's the case, but I think the mistakes some organizations make when thinking about full funnel and introducing social is, if that is your only measure of success, it probably will never hold up to the efficiencies of your search or your SEO. And if you're presenting only that information to a board, they're probably going to suggest you cut it, right? Those dollars just aren't going to look as pretty.
Yes. But we know, and we did analysis in my last role to show, most people don't convert or make an appointment on the first touch. And we saw that some people could take like 7 to 8 visits to our site before they booked online. So we know we have to be there at different stages of the patient journey. And yes, Lauren, to your point, not just look at any one channel standalone.
Yeah,
It's tough as marketers and digital marketers. We all want to quantify everything,
Yeah.
and it's not possible. I mean, this is partly art, but our private equity and C-level overlords, they don't want to hear that. Like, directionally, it is working, guys. It's hard to
Yeah, I
measure
mean,
some of these things, but
Tracy
they
said
do
it
work.
best, a lift in your conversion rates or click-through rates on paid search, or more people searching your brand term, which is cheaper than your non-brand term. I mean, you can show and tell those stories of success.
Overall appointment volume up, overall cost really down,
Yeah.
yeah, tricky, but directionally important. Social is a lot of different things. I mean, social is anything where we're interacting with the consumer. And Bonnie, you do a lot of in the health system space, it's a lot of quizzes, health risk assessment, stuff like that. Tell us, how do you use some of those things? How do they interact with paid social? How do you get a conversation started with your prospective patients?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I love about this panel is you have a lot of different views, right? You have, veterinary, you have dermatology, which is more like what I would consider retail sales. You actually have a product that is not dependent upon like a pre-authorization. Whereas, in my setting, we might have listeners today that are like, I really sit more on the ambulatory side or the acute care side where I'm not selling a service per se. It's like heart surgery. You don't wake up and say, "Ooh, I really want to learn more about heart surgery and maybe I'll need that." It's more building a stack, if you will. And going back to what Tracy and Maria both said earlier is I don't want individuals that might be listening to say, my budget is not that, bolstered. I'm with a lean organization. My team is tiny. I saw a question, pop up about, how big should your social team be? And the answer to that really is it should be based on feasibility, right? Because social is a living and breathing thing. So coming from a health system with moderate dollars, we're not for profit. We have to be mindful of the dollars we spend, but we can't be fearful of not doing the right thing, right? So a lot of it is going to be trial and error, like Maria said. Don't be afraid to throw things out there. I say like toss spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, because it's not going to be until you find those things and find that right mix that what will work for your health system. Because the reality is I don't have a dedicated social media person on my team. Every person on my team is a contributor to social media because I cannot afford a dedicated social media, manager or content manager. So, you have to utilize the resources you have. And then to Tracy's point about a funneled approach, that's where you really have to work with your strategy team, your leadership team, and say, what are your objectives? Because while some of social might be anecdotal, we're driving this new physician and we're tracking how many visits did they have before the campaign versus after. That's okay. Some of it can be anecdotal. If you have a more bolstered budget and you can, layer on CRM data into your social metric, that is really when the beauty starts to come together because you can show dollar for dollar conversion. But you really, to Tracy and Maria's point, you have to tailor the content to your audience. You have to go into your metrics, see who's following you. You have to have a plan for who you want to follow you because it's not build it, they will come. Social is so complex nowadays. There are so many things going on. And you also have to think about who your consumer is. For myself, Facebook is kind of the foundation because we're general healthcare. We're not talking about some sexy items. And most people on TikTok are not thinking about the services that we can provide that will convert to that financial metric that we need. So, for example, we do not do TikTok at this time because that is a very fast-paced channel. I mean, content lives for seconds, and I don't have a team to support it. So you have to look at how can you support it to the best of your ability without adding overhead that honestly you might not get approved by your leadership team until you can show value.
I love that. You got to think like the business person that they need us to be as marketers. Like is this going to have a return? Is our demographic in there? And that's interesting. I think, Bonnie, that gives me ideas. We have a Get Scrappy marketing session later. And I love your thought around everybody's in social. And we don't have enough to dedicate to one person. You mentioned CRM. Do you guys have a CRM? Are you tracking all the way through?
We do. So I will be honest, CRM is what I kind of call the Cadillac of marketing tools. It's a very expensive investment. If you find the right CRM partner, they will be a godsend. For example, in fiscal year 24, we're on a governmental fiscal year. So, July to June. My team finished out the year and we generated over 4,400 patient visits because I could track those directly through the CRM through a mix of campaigns. Social was one of those. And they have tools that you can layer on too, such as health assessment quizzes, especially, if you're more in the healthcare, does my back hurt? People will go take those. And that's where, Tracy was talking about, you can get that conversion metric downstream. You won't see it right away because again, there's lots of hoops that consumers will have to jump through on my side of healthcare, such as a dirty word called insurance, to be able to get to that conversion point. So depending on what kind of healthcare arena you sit in, your conversion might take months, but you track and stay with that patient. So the trick is you keep following them. To Tracy's point, it takes, 7 to 8 touch points for a consumer to even make a decision. But, if you're looking at weight loss surgery, you might have to wait 3 months for that patient to get approved by insurance. But utilizing a CRM, you can start with John Doe and then 3 months later see that John Doe converted to a surgery. So I do rely heavily on CRM use.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it is a Cadillac. I love Cadillac personally. So thank you for referencing something as Cadillac. Yeah, that's awesome. And if you don't have that directionally, how many appointments, how many visits were they getting before? Just mark your KPI, whatever that is, before you're watching your campaign. Benchmark, yes, smarter word. Maria, House of Brands, how do you manage scaling that out? I mean, we've seen a lot of clients struggle with House of Brands trying to run paid social for 200, 400 animal. What do you do? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, I know your testing strategy, but once you see that something's working, like what are how do you roll it out for hundreds?
Yeah, it's really tough. There are not a lot of great tools that you can leverage, like, third-party tools, Facebook, Meta, all of those, social groups have really locked down their APIs. So it is tough to, manage at scale. But for us, we found a lot of success in rolling them out to our different regions and hospitals based on priority and based on need. So we really calendar out everything, who's going live, what day, what they're going live with, what our KPIs are. And then once they're actually in the system and going, it's a lot easier to manage. We're able to do it at scale and, make adjustments in bulk and all of that. But the hard part is actually getting them in there and then proving out to all of the hospital managers and everything that this is a good move. We're going to show success at scale for y'all.
I think Maria, just having to get the creative assets themselves produced, let alone like campaign setup, tracking, like it's a lot.
It is. Yeah. And we have a great internal creative team here. But again, to the cohort point, right, we're starting to bucket these hospitals together so that we know certain sets of creative will work for certain hospitals and not for other hospitals. So that, we're not making 400 sets of creative necessarily, but maybe 10 or 20 so that, we can hit on these personas instead of focusing in on, the individual brand itself.
Maria, when you guys are doing, whether it's acquisition or de novo type of strategies, like does social play differently in those?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a de novo brand that kind of, is a one name brand that rivals, some of these bigger vet groups. And for that, we get to, lean in heavily on having a single brand and being able to go after a larger market area. Having to do less awareness about the hospital because we're trying to build a national brand name versus, these individual acquired hospitals. We are so micro targeted, so focused in the local area and community engagement and leaning in on the doctors' names and all of that kind of stuff. Versus the de novo where we get to really build a national brand. So it is a very different strategy between those two groups that we kind of tackle. Also with the de novo, we kind of have a little bit more leeway to, test and learn because we are building the brand. So we get to go broader on our audiences. We get to try out different, tactics and things to that extent, because there's a little bit more forgiveness when you're actually building a brand instead of taking an established brand in.
Yeah. Yeah. I see the use of the deployment of social for things like de novo can sometimes be actually the first channel you start with versus like a search strategy and others.
Exactly.
And my last question for you, just curious, do you guys have a democratic approach to like managing the community and the organic side of your social profiles, or how do you do that at scale? Just, responding to comments and posting what the doctor's up to that day.
Yeah, so we have a really great field marketing team who helps to manage all of that. Our hospital managers are also very involved in, responding to comments, questions, whatever it might be on Facebook. But we have a very, very close partnership with our field team, because there's no way that an enterprise team would be able to manage the comments and all of that on 400 hospitals.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Even 20, you think about, like, you're not there in the facility that day, knowing that it's, the vet tech's birthday, or, there's other uses for kind of building community, employee retention. There's
Right.
kind of other, so I think that's a good approach. I think sometimes we'll get asked to help with that. And my answer is always we can, however, it's not going to be what you want it to be. I really suggest pushing it to the field.
Yeah.
One of the roles that's got to be in-house.
I think so. I mean, and it doesn't have to be someone with a trained background in social. It can be someone in the facility, office management, give them a couple simple tasks to do on a weekly basis to contribute, because it's going to feel more authentic to the brand.
Relevant answer. And beauty is they don't have to deal with HIPAA. So they can, they don't have to avoid conditions or anything, and be like, sorry, you're.
Unless they're like, you mean
Be like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, your puppy broke its leg.
Yeah,
But they don't have those cautions in social. That's awesome. Happy cats. That's what we've learned in creative works really well, right? Yeah, happy
Who
cats.
doesn't like a cute cat?
Tracy, not quite the House of Brands, but you guys are spread up and down East Coast. I mean, you're in a bunch of different regions. How do you manage making sure you have the right tone, the right strategy, and all the different areas?
It's a great point, and you really need to be cognizant of a lot of different things. So if we are, we originate in the Northeast, but then we open locations in Florida, you need to make sure you're not repurposing creative and showing someone like bundled up, in the winter in Florida. Or we've expanded into the Midwest, and to make sure that any sort of imagery or messaging is aligned with the region that you're in, and also understanding the local markets. And are there different things that are more or less important to people depending on the market? It also depends. There's seasonal things too. There are, for instance, certain cosmetic dermatology treatments that you don't want to do in warmer weather or during the summer. So you need to think about those things differently. I mean, in Florida, where it's pretty much always warm, how do you talk about them? In other areas, when do you promote those? And then there's also thinking just about the demographics of your audience in general, and making sure your imagery aligns with the type of people you think are most likely to get that service. Like going back to my prior role, for sports medicine service line, we tended to use younger, more active individuals, versus in our joint replacement service line, we had older people, because we had demographics saying these are typically the people who get these types of services. And again, knowing also what's most important. If younger people prioritize proximity and older people prioritize insurance acceptance, making sure that you're highlighting the key selling points to your different audiences in your different creatives.
How do you map all of that out? Like, are you going when you enter a new market, a new area? I mean, even within Florida, Jacksonville is very different than Miami, and who lives there, and even the climate at times, right? It does get cold in Jacksonville. Do you go to these markets? Who do you interview? How do you find out?
I think it's really important to leverage the insights from the teams who are there and the people who know their patients, especially if we're taking, it's an acquisition versus a de novo. They know their patients, they know how their patients learn about them, and they know what's important. So I think it's really harnessing the power of the existing community. And if you're able to visit, absolutely do focus groups with patients, that's great. Yeah. But just making sure that you're not having a one size fits all approach, because we know that different regions are different.
Yeah, I love that.
Alignment with the ops teams.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. You have to be meeting with practice leaders. I heard Maria say
sure.
You got to get with the teams on site. And how do you manage all of this?
And just priorities, right? I think Maria said it. Just you want to do it all for everyone, but there's going to be a need-based approach to determining what you do first. So just kind of
Absolutely,
tackling it
both,
that way.
right, for offices and then also based like what Bonnie said. I mean, we also have a pretty lean team and obviously there's so much we would like to do, but we can't do everything. So how do you prioritize and focus and where are you gonna have the most impact? And we do have somebody who focuses on social, but other people can pitch in if needed. And it's really a cross-functional effort. And yes, the partnership with ops is super important as well.
I love it. Quick reminder, everybody. I saw the chat blew up when we talked about cats. I love that. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A in the chat. Other people can answer them. We got puppies and cats now. Thank you, Tomas. In the Q&A, though, feel free to put them in. We will get to that. Awesome. 10:45 is the end of this. I need to know when to stop. All right. So about 10 till. So we got about 9 minutes. We're going to get through some things and then we'll get to Q&A because everyone has questions on pet social.
I want to ask Bonnie a question because I think Bonnie, we know your organization is using social a little bit differently. And I think the traditional social, you think of Meta, but you guys have a patient podcast. And to me, that podcasting is a social channel. Talk to us a little bit about that, how you developed that, how you maintain it, what it does for the business.
And one of the coolest podcasts we've ever done.
Yeah.
That I told our brand team, I loved this so much. Yeah, Bonnie, tell us.
Yeah, so we did. We launched a podcast back in at the end of January called A View from the Bed, a patient's perspective. And there are no doctors, which in healthcare, right? It's like, whoa, mind blown when you say you're going to launch something to your executive team that's like no doctors involved. But what we were consistently hearing from social listening, from these comments that were coming in is, we'd have these side conversations. We would do a Facebook Live or a Q&A, lunch and learn with the physician, but then we'd have this side conversation that almost was from the patient saying, okay, can you tell me like the real truth? Because our doctors only have so much capacity of knowledge, right? They can tell you, for example, if you have weight loss surgery, here's the outcome, here's what you can expect. But has that doctor had weight loss surgery? 100% not. And so they can only coach you through so much. So what we were finding is patients would come to us on social and be like, hey, do you have any, tips for post recovery? I didn't realize, I really needed a caregiver to be at home with me for a couple of days, like these kinds of things. Or, especially with weight loss patients, I'm going to use this one because that's what we launched with actually was weight loss surgery. Is they would be like, how can I eat all my protein? Because when your belly is now the size of, a couple of quarters, and you have to eat 50 grams of protein a day, like, how can I do that? And so the podcast is patients only. And we talk to them about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the procedure. Obviously, we do have the physician involved because they actually choose the patient for us, because we want to make sure that that patient has a really good story to tell from start to finish. But we don't choose easy patients. We talk to patients that might have had complications, that might have had to make really hard decisions. We just did a really cool one this month about a mammogram that started out as a spider bite, come to find out had breast cancer, ended up having to have a double mastectomy, and she chose not to get reconstruction surgery. And so she actually shared her thought process on, why she decided not to move forward with breast reconstruction, because so many women don't talk about that side of it. You always think of women that have reconstruction, but then we talk about, I know it's really early in the morning, but like 40 tattooed nipples, like, what does that look like? And books that really found helpful called When Boobs Attack. And she also mentioned a really cool thing. Your friends are always like, what can I do for you? And our human instinct is to say, oh, nothing, I'm fine. And she said, you know what is great? She said, I had a friend who paid for me to have a maid service. And she said that was the best thing ever. And so we just get these really real accounts that just go over really, really well. We have not done a paid strategy at all this year. And we have had over 1,500 downloads of our podcast. We just wanted to test it organically, and it has went phenomenally. And I'm getting ready to do a podcast for November with a diabetes patient who was at risk for amputation. And because they paid attention to the signs, they were able to save that limb. But the importance of A1C, because diabetes has kind of become a flippant term in America due to diabetes because of weight problems. But diabetes is a real scary thing for people that have had it their whole lives. So it's very, very cool. And again, I want to go back to what Tracy and Maria have both said, and I think all three of us completely agree upon is you just have to throw things out there and see what sticks and resonates with your audience. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hashtag jelly. Maria has awesome animals. Tracy has really cool stuff like, hair restoration. And, I'm talking about colon cancer, but it doesn't mean that you can't make it fun. People don't
Yeah.
want to think about a colonoscopy and be like, oh, boo, I've got to go do this. It's like, no,
Yeah.
prep is awesome. Like our doctors love when you fart. Like, in fact, that's a requirement to go home
And
after
you get to
colonoscopy.
tell all kinds of effed up jokes throughout the process,
mean-
and you get the best sleep of your life.
Best sleep of your life. Like anesthesia is amazing and will wake you
Yeah.
up to go home. And so
I'd go all
you
the
can
time.
make anything fun if you look at
Yeah.
that. But going back really, really fast to again, I like to talk about moderate budgets. And you have to ask questions of your ops team, right? Because they all come at you. It's like, oh, this is sexy and we have this and that. And so my team asks questions. My first question is, what's the capacity? What's the wait time? But then what is the patient experience at that clinic or at that facility? Because I tell my ops team, if it's a parking problem, it's a marketing problem. If it's a patient experience problem, it's a marketing problem. And so I have to identify some real ops questions to determine, sorry, I've told my practice manager, sorry, I can't move forward with this campaign because you're a 3-star clinic and you can't, get an appointment when you call because the receptionist is not answering the phone. And so you have to make those decisions because your budget can't go everywhere. So you've got to build what are those right questions within my segment that makes sense.
My favorite part of all that is healthcare can be edgy and fun.
Yeah.
It needs to be relatable, or we're not going to pay attention. We're not going to learn. We're not going to listen to the cardiology podcast where someone talks about
You go back to your social feed and you go there for entertainment, to escape from, your day job, to just kind of shut your mind off. And if the content doesn't fit that into some capacity, you're going to scroll right past it. If it doesn't compel you to stop.
I love the podcast also for nurture, because I also had a heart surgery this year, and everything you go to online, it gives you the same 10 answers. Mayo Clinic says this, everybody, the doctors say you'll recover from AFib. You don't play basketball. Your kids may not love you as much. I would have loved to have gone to a podcast and listened to actual patients. Like, what does the recovery actually sound like, look like, feel like, and all that stuff. I love that. It's great for nurturing. If you have a longer procedure cycle, longer consideration, you can send that to the patients as part of a journey. Hey, you're probably thinking about this. Listen to this podcast. I love it. I love it. View from the bed.
Yeah.
View from the bed. You can go check that out.
And the other thing to that, just really quick, and I know we're getting close on time, is that I think sometimes in healthcare, we think, people have these pie in the sky realities with their health. Like, oh, I want to run a marathon. Most people don't. Like, I'll be honest, I don't want to run a marathon. That sounds horrible. But, for back surgery, for example, I want to be able to put my pants on in the morning. That is a goal. So you really have to sell what people want in their life. And most of the time, they just want the regular things. They want normalcy. And when you talk to people about normalcy, that is when you start to build trust with that
You
consumer.
don't use not fancy medical jargon, everything. Hey, they just want to get back to how quickly am I just going to be how I was yesterday? I love that. Tracy?
Well, so much of what Bonnie's saying resonates, because in my last role, what we found were that patient stories did so well, whether we put them out in organic social or whether we put them as part of our paid social. We had videos from real patients talking about their experience with surgery. And Bonnie, you're spot on. Like, it was not necessarily to run a marathon, but just to be able to take a walk around the block with their kids and what they were aspiring to. So those types of things totally resonate. And also, really, whatever you put out there needs to be true to the tone of the platform. So you want to leverage your providers to educate, but you need to make sure it's more than just a talking head on a screen. In my last role, when I came in, we were just using like 15-second clips of videos that were created for a totally different purpose, and they didn't do well. But then when assets were created specifically for the social channels, it had a totally different impact. I think it's also important to, I think I mentioned earlier, to diversify your content. So you have videos, you have ads as you know it. We also leverage blog content, and this is just to reach people with things that they might be thinking about before they even need you for care, so that they're aware of you and your expertise in the field. So when the time comes that they do need care, you are top of mind for them. And a lot of the topics for blogs come from social listening. And I think it's not really a success metric for social, but maybe an overlooked benefit is the ability, it's almost like built-in market research, looking at the comments on your post, especially if it's boosted with dollars, because then you often get more comments, to see what your target audience is thinking about. And it's also a source of advocacy, because you'll often have patients who have come to you and have had fabulous experiences commenting on how their lives have been changed because they came to you for care.
And to
I love that
Tracy's
so much.
point too, don't be afraid to be down and dirty with your posts. Like, you don't have to have a fancy schmancy graphic designer. A quick example is during COVID, there was a real fear of individuals to come into a hospital system. And they thought that it was the place you were going to catch COVID. That couldn't have been further from the truth. We were probably the safest place you could have been because of all the regulations. And so one day, one of my team members was walking around our hospital campus. It was getting close to Groundhog's Day. Kid you not, guys, there was a groundhog peeking in the window of the hospital. So my team member ran inside to that window, snapped a picture, and just put up a post that said, "The groundhogs aren't afraid to come get care. You shouldn't be either. Just remember our masking procedures." It was one of the best pieces of content we put out that entire month, and it was fun. It just took people's mind off of the moment, but it was down and dirty. Like, nobody edited it. There was no
Doesn't have to be
logos on
fancy.
it. It was just a groundhog.
I love it. Maria's gonna be looking for Punxsutawney's all around these animal hospitals. Now, Maria, real quick, because we got to get to Q&A. There's tons popping up. I think this is the new favorite session, I would say, just from what I'm seeing in this thing. This is awesome. All right, very cool. Maria, real quick, one thing that hasn't worked in paid social and one thing you're going to invest in more in paid social going into 25. Tell us something didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, we've been having, ironically, a really hard time with retargeting in paid social. I think Facebook is just Facebook, Meta, all those platforms, and even TikTok, like, they are so dependent on the algorithm now. They don't want you to control your audiences. They want to control the content. So I think the more nitty gritty that you get, the harder it becomes to see results in your paid social portfolio. But we are super excited to lean into influencers, TikTok, all of kind of the fun native channels. We have some doctors who are TikTok famous, so we're really excited to get them going on a paid strategy. And I think we're really, gonna lean into creating ads for the channel, meeting the customers where they are, and starting to put out some really, really fun content next year.
All right, cool.
And
I see
you're
you
one of the
smiling
only
there.
ones
You
that
can't
can remarket, Maria, because you don't have
Yeah.
to abide by HIPAA.
Yeah.
So it's
She's
like,
like-
love it
yeah.
when it doesn't
And
work.
she's like, it's not working out well. All right, good.
That makes everybody else feel better. Okay, they're not
Yeah,
missing
all right,
anything.
we're not missing anything. All right, we're gonna get to right to Q&A. I was gonna ask everybody that. So if you think Tracy, Bonnie, something that didn't work, let us know. But there's a lot of good questions in here, and I want to get to a few of them.
Well, yeah, I've got one that came up. Everybody asks, is Meta always the first place that you start? There's all these other kind of adjacent platforms, Reddits and Nextdoors. And have you guys tried anything there? Is Meta where you started? Is that what you would advise people, where you advise them to start?
To go obviously where your audience is. And I mean, another one we could throw in the mix is, do you leverage LinkedIn? And that's obviously much more of a professional focus. So you would leverage that in select cases. I think for me, I mean, Meta, because it's Facebook and Instagram, it's just so massive and huge, and likely at least some of your target patients are going to be there. So to me, it is a natural place to start, but I also think it's important to try other channels. I did try Nextdoor. I love the idea of it being so hyper local, and thought it would be a great way to get the type of message out. At the time that I did that, their advertising was really not sophisticated and it didn't work for us. I've heard they're evolving their platform, so it might be something to try in the future, because I do think there's something to be said for being very local.
Let's, Maria, using paid social as lead generation tactic. I know you mentioned that you do that. Do you capture leads in platform? Or are you driving them to landing pages?
Landing pages. We do use the call button
Okay.
sometimes. We've been A/B testing that a little bit, but primarily driving to landing pages is where we find the best success, and it's easily scalable, right? If we have leads coming in from Facebook forms and all that kind of stuff, then we have to manage it. It becomes chaos. Hospital managers have to get involved. So just send them to the landing pages because that's what everybody knows.
This is the tactical stuff I love. Brad, I think I saw you send in this question. Good to see you, by the way, another Milton night. I would love to hear how they balance the resources dedicated to organic versus paid social. Let's just hear proportion. What do you guys emphasize more? Anybody have an opinion there?
I mean, I think it has to match your strategic objective, and what kind of healthcare set you're in, because, you've heard three different sets of healthcare, and we each have different, probably value sets that we would put on each. So that's where you really have to think about who's your consumer and what really is their viability for conversion, but what's your system's viability to convert them. For example, in Arkansas, we don't have a call center. So, we really have to think through landing pages, like Maria said, or just pushing them to the individual clinics. Even if it's just anecdotally, we can track, because we want to make it easiest for the consumer. We don't want to drive them to a landing page just to go to a landing page to click a call button if we can have them call. So you just have to build
Don't
it.
sacrifice patient experience for trackability, right? There's kind of this fine
100%.
line.
Yeah.
And
Smart.
one of the
Yes.
questions that came in for Bonnie and Tracy, who do have HIPAA regulations to consider in what you're doing, if you have to strip the pixel and you can't use the Metapixel or the Google Pixel or whatever it is, technologies you guys are using to help bridge that gap and see what's happening. The audience is wanting to know if you can recommend anything.
CRMs, health assessment quizzes. A lot of CRM companies or even standalone companies offer health assessments that you can purchase one-off. I know Personify is one that offers a health quiz, a pretty robust health quiz, and they're very inexpensive on a monthly basis, especially if you're more on the, hospital consumer healthcare side of things, that are very easy because you can then track the downstream without the pixel.
Mm-hmm. And Tracy, what about you? What are you guys doing either at Schweiger or even just in your past experience?
Yeah, so I mean, in my past experience, this was when the height of all of the HIPAA regulations really started. And we initially just had to strip everything, and we were focusing on clicks, and we were trying to do more directional trends versus tying things to appointments. And we did have the ability to see a very small segment of appointments still, and we're essentially extrapolating based on past trends what we thought we were getting from the full campaign. As far as now, we are not currently doing paid social, except for like one-off campaigns, and those aren't appointment focused. But as we integrate paid into our full funnel campaign, I think we'll need to explore ways to track from a HIPAA compliant perspective. And I believe that there are platforms that do allow you to do that, or feel really confident in whatever directional assessments we are making.
We've got to ask that third question. We didn't pay anyone to put these questions out there.
Well,
It's perfect.
regardless of whether you're using an external vendor or an internal team, do you guys feel like having your media strategy managed by kind of a single, vendor, internal or external, do you split your social and your paid and your programmatic into different places? Do you think that you should run them all together? Is anybody doing a strategy that is all together versus apart?
I mean, I can talk to this a little bit. I see tremendous value in having things managed holistically. In my prior role, digital and offline were managed by separate partners. But there was also a push to even get those pulled together. But at least from a digital perspective, having one partner thinking about everything, from organic to paid, I think it enables you to be holistic. It enables you to make the best use of your dollars, shift things around based on how things are working or not working. And then I think at least considering some of the offline, even if offline is not managed by the same partner, because offline channels do contribute to awareness. So if you know that some sort of campaign is running in a market, make sure that your digital partner knows that. So maybe you could double down on certain tactics during the time that it's running. But I think consolidated for me is hugely beneficial.
Well, and just for a little bit different perspective from Tracy too, because I think that's definitely best case scenario, but again, budget limitations occur, right? So what I always recommend is no matter what, if it's all together or spread 100 different ways, you have to own the strategy. You have to own the holistic plan. Do not just rely on your partner or partners for that, because you are still the expert on your segmentation. So if you're not fully involved, you can bring vendor partners together from a cost efficiency standpoint if that's how you have to do it. I mean, I'm split a couple of different ways. Again, for budgetary reasons, we're a very nonprofit organization. And but I bring my vendors together. They work really well together. We touch, base once a week, and we all go over reporting together. So, my traditional knows what my digital mix is doing, but at the end of the day, my team is still the owner of what we need to be doing.
I love it. I love it.
100%
Thank
agree.
you.
I
And
think
Austin
that's
keeps-
the
Austin
key,
keeps-
point. Yeah.
Austin's yelling at me, and Maria does something. I'm just going to throw this out there. That's really cool. Anything new to the program, to their marketing program, Maria will internally spin things up like Meta, LSAs, PPC in certain markets, and then she'll turn them.
Kind of
over.
control
Yeah,
the test environment and then
Yep.
democratize it. Yeah.
I think that's another avenue to answer a question is if you want to keep control and really see if it works and you have the acuity to do it. Great. Maria, Tracy, Bonnie, this was awesome. You can tell it was awesome. Everybody loved it. Thank you.
We did not get to all the questions.
Yep.
So many people wanted to ask you guys follow-ups. So we will toss those into our AMA. That will be our closing session today, to try to help, pull some answers together for everybody. But thank you guys so much for joining us.
Go
Great to
find
have
them
you.
on LinkedIn.
Thank
Go
you.
find them on
Thank you.
LinkedIn, guys. They'll be happy
Bye,
to answer.
everyone.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.